So I watched some videos lately that has been living in my head. The Dean Withers versus 20 Trump-loving women one from Jubilee, and all of the speakers from the women's conference that Turning Point USA held. And I just had the urge to tell you guys why I think it's important to be a feminist, and why it's important to me, and why I think it's important for you too, even though you might want to live a very traditional life. I don't usually make videos like this. My channel is about my journey towards financial freedom and checking things off my long bucket list. But I felt this to my core and wanted to share. And I think maybe the two themes are more connected than I might think. First off, let me say this very clearly. I believe in people's right to live the life they want. There's not a single cell in my body that doesn't get women that want to stay home and raise children and build a traditional family. I want that as well. I just want to have a business on the side and be a content creator and all of those things as well. I don't want my husband to be the only one bringing the money in. But that's the thing. You have the ability to choose and to decide that you want to be a stay-at-home mom. But that choice wasn't always possible. Earlier, that traditional role wasn't chosen. It was assigned. There were really no alternative. The women who fought for feminism, who marched and were imprisoned, they weren't fighting so all women had to have a career and had to have an education. They were fighting so we could choose. So that the stay-at-home mom and the CEO got to choose. Decide for themselves. And a lot of these women are saying that feminism has gone too far, that it's destroying society, and that they're willing to give up their right to vote just so the husband and the leader of the family can vote for the whole household. But if you listen to that again, you want to choose that for yourself and your family. Do you get my point? You might be able to vote on that belief. And that's where we have a problem, because I can respect that you want to choose that for yourself. But I cannot respect that you want to take that right away from other women that don't want to live like that. But what I think is the most dangerous part of all of this movement and the politics in the United States is the absolute certainty. Like, watch the videos and see how sure people are about what women are meant to be, about what God wants, about what will make society better, about what is true and what is a lie. There is no room for nuance. No room for, I could be wrong. No room for the fact that life is complicated and people are very different. And the truth is rarely so simple. At the women leadership thing of Turning Point USA, one of the speakers said, and I quote, "We have the truth on our side." We have the truth on our side. Most people think they're right and might say, "I believe I'm right." That's normal, but the truth they have on their side. If you go down the history lane, what has people with certainty that are certain that the thing they are doing is necessary done? What have they done? Usually pretty horrific things. Everything has nuances, and the nuances mustn't die. If that dies, I think listening to other people, learning from other people stops. And I think that is one of the most important things we do as humans. And I'll be honest, if it isn't already obvious, I'm an atheist. I'm fairly convinced that when we die, that's it. No heaven, no hell, no next life. And I hold that belief quite firmly, actually. But I don't go around telling religious people that they're wrong, because how arrogant would that be? To be so certain of something that no one actually knows, and to decide that my version of the world is the right one and the only valid one. I want to live in a world where we hold our beliefs strongly, but humbly, where we make room for the fact that other people's experiences and feelings are real and valid, even when they're completely different from ours. Where I could be wrong is not a sentence of weakness, but a sign of intellectual honesty. That is not what I see in these videos. That is not what I see on TikTok edits and from the news, like from afar, like I am sitting here as a Norwegian woman and mom. And I'm scared because this certainty divides people. It doesn't bring people together. It drives them apart. It creates this big divide that is almost impossible to bridge. Knowing what you believe and living by that, that's cool. That's good. But the moment your certainty becomes like us versus them, stops you from being able to see other people's perspective, that's when it stops being a strength and starts being destructive. Another one said, "Feminism is a movement created by the wealthiest elites to turn women away from God." And I'm not sure if she spoke about the US or the world. Anyway, I think it's a massive assumption there that God, the Christian God, is the shared framework. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the rest of the world, but there are Also, nuances here. I live in Norway. Most Norwegians are not religious. Most people I grew up with are non-believers. And this is not some new development. Like, my family have traditions, but we're not Christian. Not my parents, not my grandparents. So this is not a symptom of the woke culture corrupting us. And before Christianity even hit Scandinavia, before the missionaries came, we had our own gods and our own way of understanding the world. A whole bunch of people, or gods, that included strong, powerful female figures. And we had shield maidens, that is female warriors. Archaeologists have found females buried with weapons, women who fought, who led, and were not staying home. So honestly, I don't think feminism turned people away from our God, at least, or our original God. My ancestors would have a complete different answer to that assumption. And they still built families and communities and a way of life. And maybe if we still had that, feminism would just be a part of society. I think it's very important to understand how diverse and complex and large the world actually is. Another thing being said that actually pissed me off was that women were happier before. They were happier before without the choices. And that's probably somewhat true, because when you live in a small world and never been shown the alternative, never been told that something different is possible, not being a part of any discussions, you can probably reach some kind of contentment. A bird born in a cage who's never seen an open sky doesn't know what flying feels like. And in that sense, it's not really suffering. If the happiness of women before feminism depended on not knowing, on being shielded from the knowledge, then that happiness was controlled. And I don't want that version of happiness for me, my daughter, or anyone else. And I'm just going to put some facts out there. The Nordic countries where women have the most rights, the most choices, consistently rank among the happiest populations on earth. And here's what genuinely keeps me up at night. I was born in Norway. I won the lottery. I grew up in one of the most gender equal countries in the world, with a culture that largely believe that men and women are capable of the same things. And I have done nothing to deserve that. I was just born here. And right now, there are women alive on this planet that are not allowed to drive, who cannot leave their house without a male relative, who are married off as children, who are denied an education not based on like intellect or ambition, but because their gender somewhat makes them less. These women didn't choose their lives. They did not get a vote. They did not get to go on a women's conference. They don't get to say their opinion. They don't get to be interviewed, get on stage and speak, or post a video on YouTube. So when I think of feminism and what matters to me, I think about them. I think about the fact that I have massive privileges that people would probably die for. And I think it's an extraordinary waste to not use that. I feel like I owe it to the women that don't get to choose to exploit that. So I travel, I build my own income streams, I make my own financial decisions, I set my own goals, I follow my bucket list. I use every single freedom available to me because I'm grateful for the women that fought for my right to do that, and because of the women that don't get to choose. And this is where it gets personal, because I'm building financial freedom, and I think building financial freedom for myself is the most feminist thing I can do. And it has nothing to do with men. I just don't want my life choices to be constrained by financial dependency on someone else. Not a partner, not my parents, and not an employer. Money is freedom, not in a shallow way, in a very literal way. And when I see movements actively working to roll these rights back, that is telling women that their highest calling is submission, that ambitions are unfeminine, I feel it in a way I didn't before because of my daughter, because now I'm thinking about the world my daughter is going to grow up in, and that future matters to me. Okay, before I go, I just want to clarify one more time that I obviously don't judge these women's decisions to be like a stay-at-home mom or being a Christian or anything like that. I genuinely want them to choose the life they want. But it's about not taking that for granted. I am a feminist because I'm grateful, because I was lucky, because I think every woman on this planet deserves what I have, which is the ability to choose her own life. What a privilege. And I will keep using mine every day, on purpose, and as much as possible. If this resonated, or if you disagree and want to talk about it, the comment section is open. And if you want to follow along my original content that is about achieving financial freedom, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.